Tre Jones contract did become official over the weekend with the Bulls making the official announcement with a press release. And on top of that, shout out to Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype, who got a little bit of added intel on that deal, tweeting recently, the Bulls have a third-year team option on their 3-year, $24 million deal with Tre Jones. Sources tell Hoops Hype. Averaged 11.5 points, 57% shooting, 50% from 3, 5 assists, 3.2 boards, 1.1 steals in those 18 games for the Bulls, including 9 starts. Man,
that's pretty good.
Kind of remind myself when I go back and talk about Tre Jones that he put up numbers.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It was a small sample size, but think about per 36.
Yeah,
those would skyrocket.
Yeah.
So there is that interesting little wrinkle, another team option on the heels of the Bulls and the Lonzo Ball 2-year deal with a team option. Here's another one for Tre Jones, gentlemen. What do we think about this? Because the initial reporting was the Bulls really liked what they saw in Tre Jones. They want to keep Tre Jones if they can. They did so, but instead of the, aw shucks, of course they did player option. No, team option once again.
Yeah.
Is AK learning?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, thinking about, this deal originally came in like an hour into free agency, right? Like we were talking about it
during our live show.
We're almost going to end the show, and then it happened. So it was like the first hour. And when you see that number, it's like, okay, that's manageable. It's a pay cut from what he was making before. I've seen conflicting reporting on whether it's an ascending deal or if it's a flat. Spot Track right now has it at $8 million per year, so I'm going to go with that. Mm-hmm. That's 5.2% of the salary cap next year. Super manageable number. But then you look at what some of the other, especially smaller guards, and what their market was looking like, and $8 million was starting to feel like maybe a little bit of an overpay. Not egregious. Again, it's like a very small percentage of the cap. It's like not that big a deal. But Tyus Jones, his older brother, who I think is known as a better player, I don't know if he actually is, he got 1 year, $7 million. You look at some of these other small guards that either were traded or bought out. It's just there's not a lot of market for them. And so I was thinking maybe that was a little bit unnecessary to bring in a guy. Obviously, you trade Lonzo, but this is basically your fourth guard right now. Yeah. Do you really need to be paying more than the minimum for that? And I think probably the answer to that is no, even if you want to play with depth. Like the Bulls don't have any minimum contracts on their team right now. Everybody is making more than that, except for Julian Phillips, who's on a second-round exception. Everybody's making more than like $1 or $2 million. And I just feel like you have to, if you're especially going to have depth and you're going to be paying more for some guys, you have to balance that out with cheap guys at the end of the cap sheet. And so is this like a huge deal that you would give him $8 million? No. But I will say the team option on the third year does make it way more palatable to me because typically when you go out in years, you're giving them a larger amount of dollars, right? So Tyus Jones, 1 year, $7 million deal. They probably overpaid him relative to what his market value was to get him on the 1 year deal. Last year, he signed a minimum with the Suns for 1 year. So he got a little bit more money to keep the deal short. And Trey got even more money than that, but also kept it long. So is there a world where this totally works out and it's completely fine and he looks great? Absolutely. He's probably going to exceed the value of this in terms of his production compared to the percent of the cap. But having that club option on the final year, I do think makes a difference in terms of flexibility, in terms of just learning from your mistakes. I think that's the key piece there. Is the Bulls gave Patrick Williams a 3-year or a player option on the final year of his deal. They gave Javon Carter, Torrey Craig, all these guys that and I think it's because they want to be known as and looked at a player-friendly organization, but you can't do that to your own detriment.
Sure.
And so getting Lonzo on the player option, on the club option, I think made him more tradable. I think the same is true for Trey. That's a tradable contract, and I think it's a fine deal, even if it's maybe a slight overpay.
Did Drummond have a player option also?
Drummond did have a player option.
Okay.
Thank you for calling that out.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm glad they made this deal. It's a smart deal to me. When I heard there was a team option, I said, oh, yes, perfect. This is wonderful. This is basically a 2-year deal for you. You're taking a 2-year flyer on a guy that in the games that he played really showed out for you. And he's still young. And honestly, I don't mind the 4. I think are you counting Giddey, Kobe, Ayo, and now Tre Jones as the 4
guards? Yeah.
Okay. See, I don't mind that at all. That doesn't bother me having that, especially having a guy who showed you he can be versatile and impactful when he's on the floor with any one of those players outside of Ayo. So I think it's a good deal, man. It's basically for me the Lonzo Ball deal. but you're getting a free year in that third year because you get to make that decision and you get to evaluate it much, much better as far as he is concerned. Because with Lonzo, it's not, if you keep him, it's not evaluation. You already know the player Lonzo Ball is. It's can he stay healthy?
Yeah.
So with this also, I think also the health plays into it also. Because remember that freak injury that he went out on, that he was out for the rest of the season about. Will that rear its ugly head? Well, this protects you, honestly, from that kind of thing. So it allows you those 2 years and that time to say, oh, okay, well, even if it does, if I want to trade him after this year, if I want to, make another go at it the next year, I can. But you have an option for that third year. It is all about options, and they are giving themselves options as a team. Yes, the Bulls are learning from their mistake. Not all of them. They're still making some of the same mistakes for sure, but they're learning from them. In this instance, when it comes to the contract, I like how they're negotiating their deals. The Bulls in the past, I don't know, probably the Lonzo contract, I didn't hate. I just didn't want them to sign them, but I didn't hate the contract. This contract, I don't hate. I like what they're doing with Giddey. We'll get into that as far as the contract is concerned. So they're being more shrewd and they're being tougher, which is what they need to do because, like I continue to say, they can't operate from a position of power in many instances, and this is one of those instances where they can, which is your actual money and your contract. So I think it's a good deal. I think Tre Jones has proven to be a really solid player. He wants to be here on this team, and, yeah, I think the Bulls did well.
One more thing on that. I just think, like, when you think about signing contracts, you have to think about, like, getting upside on those contracts, right? Like, you don't want to have, like, obviously, especially outside of rookie scale deals, you are gonna have to pay guys money, but you want to pay them an amount where their production is going to exceed what you're paying them. And so when you have a club option, that gives you the upside on the last year of the deal, right? It's a 3-1 compared to a 2+1, where the player would have the option to pick it up. If he plays super well, exceeds that contract, and then wants to get out in the market, you still have the ability to keep him around at a number that's going to be a team-friendly deal compared to him saying, actually, I'm playing way better than this. I can get back out on the market, and now I'm in control of the situation. Like, this is how, like, team-friendly this is how smart organizations create team-friendly roster and cap for themselves. Yeah. And you look at teams like the Orlando Magic who have, like, this affinity towards descending contracts where you pay a little bit more upfront and then the contract gets smaller over time. As the cap rises, that becomes really beneficial and allows you to have flexibility. And I think that the Bulls have probably learned their lesson from a couple of player options where now, the Zach LaVine player option, like, they couldn't trade him sooner. If it was a team option on that last year, and obviously they weren't going to give him a team option on a max deal, but just as an example, like, that deal could have been tradable for more value. And I think that's why they were able to get anything for Lonzo, because they had control over the contract, and that gives you upside, and that is what teams want, especially in this new CBA where everything is so every dollar spent that's not good money is so damaging. And so to get this, I think, puts the Bulls in a much better situation to get upside on that last year of the deal, or maybe they just want to waive him after 2 years and reset, and they can do that too. And so I think that's just a smart way to do business, and I would hope that the Bulls continue to operate this way